The following is a presentation of the Missouri Sports Network.
Are you looking for an athletic scholarship? You're in the right place. This is the Recruit Me Athletic Scholarship Podcast, the longest running podcast on recruiting and athletic scholarships. We're here to help your family navigate the recruiting road all the way to an athletic scholarship. He's a recruiting expert and a dad of 2 college athletes. He has a wealth of experience to share. Here's Recruit Me CEO, Brent Hanks.
Welcome to episode 443 of the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. Today's episode is a longer episode and is part 1 of a 2-part interview with Jay Spoonhour. Jay currently is the Assistant Athletics Development Director at Missouri State University in Springfield, Missouri. Missouri State is an NCAA Division I university and is considered a mid-major in sports. It currently competes in sports in the Missouri Valley Conference, but next year, the 2025-2026 season, they will be moving to Conference USA, and football is moving from the FCS level to the FBS level. Jay's job deals with the athletic department's new adventure in the NIL, or name, image, and likeness, and he helps to raise money and guide the university through the nuances of NIL. Missouri State has 19 varsity-level teams that he works with. Jay, also known as Coach Spoonhour, played basketball and graduated from Pittsburgh State, a Division II level school in Pittsburgh, Kansas. His career took off after he graduated as a graduate assistant at Pitt State in 1994. He moved to an assistant coach for his dad, Coach Charlie Spoonhour, from 1996 to 1999 at St. Louis University. He moved to Valparaiso in 2000, then was the head coach at Wabash Valley Junior College in the 2000-2001 season. Jay went to work again for his dad at UNLV from 2001 to 2004. He was an assistant at UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, during the 2006, 2007, and 2008 seasons, after Charlie retired. From 2009 to 2012, he was the basketball head coach and athletic director at Moberly Junior College, and then moved to the head coach job at the University of Eastern Illinois University for 9 years from 2012 to 2021. He got back into coaching at Missouri State University as an assistant in the 2023-2024 season, and now is in an administration role there. So he has been at many levels and many different types of colleges for 30 years. You'll find out that Jay was a high schooler when I attended Missouri State University, then Southwest Missouri State, and I was a manager for the men's basketball team under the direction of, yes, his dad, Coach Charlie Spoonhour. I was introduced to Jay as Jay Bird, and he knew me as Manage. I had a great 4-year experience with Coach Charlie, and I got to watch Jay grow up through high school, college, and have got to see his family and his coaching career over the years. Today, we will cover Jay's current job description and what he does for the athletes and the university. And we will see the ins and outs of NIL at Missouri State and NIL in general at all levels. Next week, we will hit on more information about college sports. So today, let's get into this informative interview with Jay Spoonhour. Well, Jay, welcome to the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. Thanks for your time.
I'm happy to do it.
And I actually kind of know you as Jay Bird. I think a guy named Coach Charlie Spoonhour introduced me to you when you were in high school, and there was Jay Bird and your little brother Bear.
Well, he didn't call anybody by their real name. So
That's right, because I was Manage. I don't know that he knew my name,
which was not very creative. Brian Robertson was B. Nobody has their real name.
If he was calling you by that and not calling you by a hickory nut or a rockhead, you were okay.
Yeah, you were in trouble if he used your Christian name.
Well, tell us what your current job is there at Missouri State, and then tell us what you actually do.
Well, I can read what it title. Basically, you're an assistant AD for development and fundraising. Basically, is what it is. There's college athletics. I'm going to tell you, depending on when we air this, stuff changes so much, Brent. It's like who knows where it's all going. But one thing is for sure, the funds are going to be needed, because you have a whole new, basically, stream that you have to satisfy now with NIL. So I started here. There was no NIL set up, no NIL department. And really, it's because most mid-majors didn't know where any of this was going. We still don't really know, but we know that the NIL is not going away now. So for the last couple of years, teams have been doing NIL kind of out of, and I'm talking about mid-majors. The big boys got into it pretty early. But not knowing where everything was going to go, universities were reluctant because you didn't want to set up something and start employing a bunch of people and then have it all go away. And it just created a hassle. So a lot of mid majors are like in the spot where Missouri State is, where we're just starting our NIL group. And basically it's another area of the foundation that has to raise money.
And so you get to go out and talk to alumni, donors, businesses. Is that kind of where the money comes from? And then where does that money go? And like, how does it get distributed throughout the athletic department?
The money that I raise cannot come to university because it hasn't been adjudicated yet. It's going to. We're all pretty sure that by July this year, the rules are going to be passed. It's all going to be taken care of to where the schools can pay the athletes. Okay. And it'll be at every different level. Everybody always talks about the big guys, the Big Ten and the SEC. They're going to have to come down to 22 million. And the 22 million is the number that the NCAA basically based the average revenue of each Power 5 institution that they could handle in terms of what they could pay. So every Power 5 has the ability, as a cap, to pay $22 million out of their university foundation, and then they will distribute the money. Up until then, like right now, the way it's all going, it's all through these things that are called collectives, which are private donations by individual people, by corporations, and they are not affiliated with the school in any way. And so I don't have much to do with the collective other than I try to help them raise money if I can.
Who decides how that's distributed?
The coaches will, and this is the other thing, is that for a year, no one really knows because there's really not any rule in place on this, Brent. Like the coaches, for the most part, don't much to do with it. The people that run collectives at different schools, like Missouri State has 3 different collectives. The football, and they did it out of necessity because they started realizing that, hey, we're going to lose players to these other schools. We need to try to raise some money. So there's a group called the Football Players Association that was started by Dennis Heim, and it's run by Trevor Christ and Kirk Elmquist and a bunch of other really forward-thinking, smart business people that are big Bear football fans. They have their own setup, and they raise money and have golf tournaments in order to try to hang on to ball players. I don't think anybody here is at the point where we're using NIL money to attract players. It's really to try to hang on to them. Men's basketball started a few years ago with the guys over at Forvis, and then a group of guys in town. I think Jim Ferguson's on the board, and Tad Pinniger and other people who are big Bear fans. They started the Bears Hoops Alliance. I think it's 3 or 4 years old. And again, it came out of, hey, we need to do this if we're going to hang on to players because other teams are offering them money. And so all the money raised is by private donations. And then here just recently, this summer, the baseball team had to do it because a whole bunch of teams started coming after the outfielders. And I mean, like you get a guy that goes out and hits home runs and everybody starts calling on him and they say, hey, here's what we can give you. And so you start scrambling around saying, what can we raise here to try to hang on to these guys? And baseball team did very well. They were able to hang on to their guys that they wanted. And football just recently, Jacob Clark said he's going to stay. That's sort of where we are on it.
This gets into a lot of levels like you were talking about. So like the SEC, I heard that all their quarterbacks that started for SEC teams made more money this year than Brock Purdy did for the San Francisco 49ers. So you've got the Power 4, Power 5. We're talking mainly mid-major with Missouri State. So is baseball, basketball, and football kind of the main ones that have some collective money going, or some of the other sports like track and tennis and soccer, or are they kind of having to get involved too?
The only collectives that Missouri State has, anyone can do it, but the only ones that have it currently at Missouri State are the 3 that I mentioned. It's
right.
Football, but now women's basketball could, and they're right on the edge of, they lost a couple of girls last year to the portal as well. They're right on the borderline of, do we want to set one up? The deal is that everyone is a bit in a holding pattern because we really want to see how the collective bargaining, how that all looks, or not collective bargaining, the revenue sharing. So what we anticipate is going to happen in July is every team has the choice. Every university has the choice of whether you're going to either opt in or opt out. If you opt out of the whole revenue sharing thing, you're basically doing business as usual. You have your collective if you want to use it, but the university does not pay the kids. It's just like the rules have always been. If you opt in, which at this point seems like what Missouri State is going to do. You are now saying we are on board with paying athletes, and how that ends up looking, like where the money comes from. Some of it's appropriated from it comes out of your budget. So all the stuff that universities used to spend money on, a portion of that is now going to go to the athletes. And so I don't know what the number will be, but here's the thing I will tell you. Like the average, I told you, 22 million is the cap for Power Fives. I think the average Conference USA team is around 3.5 million, is a number that I saw. You can't totally take these numbers to the bank because nobody knows. And that's 3.5 million for the entire athletic department. The majority of that money would go to football, and then men's basketball would get another appropriated amount. And then where it goes from there, I'm not sure, and I don't want to say and be wrong, but it's also new, Brandon. In a way, it's exciting, but it's we're up in the air.
So is our families that listen, our student athletes that listen, that think they're going to get major NIL money, they might possibly do that at the Power 4, Power 5 type of conferences. The upper levels of those, my son Parker went to Northwestern in the Big Ten. I doubt if they're getting into NIL money big time in baseball in particular, but they probably are in football and basketball. But at the Conference USA Missouri Valley level that the Missouri State Bears are in, some people in the conference are going to jump in, and some people aren't, and some people are going to try to get recruits to come in with some money, or like you said, they're going to just have to use that money to try to retain players and get players to transfer in at their junior or senior years. Is that about right?
I think so. I don't know exactly where it goes, and I'm speaking generally now, not Missouri State specific, but just in general. If you're not producing revenue, who knows what's going to happen to you? I'm talking about your overall sport. Like I've seen Big Ten teams and a Big 12, an AD from a Big 12 team basically say that. Like, look, if you are not in a position where your sport is generating money, which is the case with most sports. Most sports don't make money. We are not going to be able to fund you like we have. And to me, what that means is we've all seen sports get cut. I mean, wrestling has been getting cut all over the country.
Yeah.
There used to be men's gymnastics. There used to be Missouri State doesn't have a men's track and field team. They don't have a cross country team. Everything is based on funds. And so I think you're going to see more of that because you started the question by saying, can you anticipate earning a lot of money? For sure, if you are a high level person, the amount of money that a guy like Jackson Cantwell is going to demand or command, I shouldn't say demand.
Right.
That makes it sound like he's doing it. But the ability is now there. It never was there before. In a way, it's a really terrific thing for parents. It's a terrific thing because it doesn't have to be huge money. Some of these guys like you said, some of them are making generational money in college, which is crazy. But I'm a parent of 3. I would love my kid to make generational money. It won't be happening. But you know what? If he can get his books paid for, terrific. And the fact is that you can now do that as a student athlete. It gives you the ability to get paid if you'll hustle a little bit. I'm going to tell you that here with the Bears, there's 2 people that really are doing well in NIL, and it's Cayman Beckmeyer and Lacey Stoke.
Right.
2 women's basketball players. They're recognizable. They're nice people. They're good players. And like Cayman Beckmeyer is sort of an influencer on TikTok anyway. She's using her thing with the Bears. She's helping out businesses in her hometown, and she's making a little bit of money. She's not making generational money, but she's making pretty good money for a college kid.
Right.
It all does is it affords kids the opportunity to do it.
So the way I understand it, there's like 3 levels or 3 different ways of NIL. One is the money that we were talking about that they may get paid, that you see on ESPN, when they talk about Arch Manning is getting X millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's coming from that would be coming from a collective.
That's coming from a collective.
That money is cash coming from a collective. The kid, they have to do something for it. It may it may not match up with the millions of dollars a guy gets, but you show up, you do autograph signing, you take pictures, you do whatever, and yes, that's how.
I mean, if I wanted to, I could go and give $1,000 to a player just because I wanted to. Is that correct?
Yeah, you would do it through the collective.
You still do it through the collective.
That's the easiest way to do stuff. But then you could also do it like if you own a business, like I mentioned with Cayman is doing her latest thing was she's on a billboard out in Republic for Pinnager Chevrolet, and you drive into Republic and there's Cayman and she's got she's out there with her Bear uniform on, and that's sort of how it's a local business who has advertising dollars, if they want to help out a player that they really like, that's the way they can do it. It gets as close as you can get to a reciprocal agreement where you get somebody who is who's a well-liked athlete that people like and they want to represent your company. I think it's good on both ends there.
And then another way, like you said, is social media, or now they can pretty much most athletes can give lessons where 5 or 6, 7 years ago, that was not legal. So you can, like, if you're a baseball pitcher, you can give pitching lessons now.
You got it. So what we're going to do with the social media stuff, I mentioned Cayman being an influencer. She's done some stuff with Rapid Roberts, does it on TikTok. She goes and films some stuff. It's the advertising they're already doing. I think the Rapid Roberts guys have loved it. It's been great for both ends. I just started this last week trying to set up some clinics and camps for our athletes who are local, and even not necessarily local, like a kid from Jeff City could maybe go back after the basketball season.
Right.
Have a one-day shooting camp, and his high school helps him out, maybe get some kids to come over. The kid, you take pictures, you sign autographs, and you work with kids individually for a day. And it's a way that you can make a little bit. The same thing with like baseball. Shoot, what you paid for instruction, for pitching lessons. And thing about it, if you have a kid who's an athlete, you and I both know quite a bit about the different sports we cover. But at some point, my kid got past me in terms of pitching. I couldn't help him anymore. And if I wanted him to be good, he's 13 or 14 years old. I'm like, shoot, if he's really going to be good, I need to find somebody.
Right.
Well, those things are expensive. And to find somebody that really knows what they're talking about, well, all of these, like all the kids on the Bears team, you talk about a guy that knows how to hit. Like you talk to Zach Stewart from Lebanon, he knows how to hit. The only thing is he doesn't have a ton of time. He can't hang out and do individual workouts, but he could come do a one-day clinic, tell your kid, hey, this is what you need to work on. You're getting it from a guy that knows how to hit.
And that's good for the university too, because it kind of gets their name out there. And you got Zach Stewart. Sutton played with him in summer ball and against him, and he's a big name around here, and that draws attention to him and Missouri State both.
And I think it's real world stuff about starting your life and building your own brand as what you're going to be. Like if you're going to open an insurance agency, the first thing you do is you start marketing and you start trying to drum up business. Same thing if you're going to be in real estate, whatever it is you're going to do. If you're starting your own business, that's what it is. Well, for all of these kids, not all of them, but a lot of these Division I athletes, if you're Division I, it is your business. You spend so much time doing it. Even like my daughter is a runner, even she could do stuff, could start a running club and get high school kids or junior high kids, maybe talk to them about how to stretch, how to cool down, how to do all that stuff. That is the stuff that these kids already know how to do. Again, we're not talking about huge money. This isn't the stuff that's kind of distasteful. When you start talking about guys making money that they're making, it gets a hair distasteful to me. I'm talking millions. And I know that it bothers other people, but that's not what we're talking about for most people, especially like people that are at Missouri State or at Drury or in any college that's mid to major to low major. Just want them to have the opportunity that maybe they can not go into total debt going to school.
Well, and part of the message I think I wanted to come out of this is NIL money is out there at any level, but I don't really talk to a lot of people that are that Arch Manning type of person, and so if you're looking for millions of dollars, it's out there, but you got to be pretty special to go get it. Otherwise, get to a place that you want to play and can play, and then work the system through that, and you can come up with some NIL money.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, they wouldn't let kids work, right? You remember that. Like, yes. You couldn't have a job. And so that was when they were into the NCAA just cracks me up on all this stuff. All their high ideals from years ago about amateurism and you shouldn't be sullied by money and all those things. Meanwhile, they're making billions of dollars. It's not feasible really for kids to be able to work when you're talking about schoolwork during a year and then you're in your season, you can't get a job. But this allows them to make money on their name or their image, and that doesn't require a ton of time. That's sort of what I'm talking about with the camps and clinics. My goal is to not make Lacey Stokes have to work a second on setting it up. I'll make all the phone calls. I'll do all the stuff about hopefully promoting it. And then she just shows up that day and does what she's good at and then can make a little bit of money.
Right. The whole Blue Chip Money or movie years ago with Shaq and Nick Nolte, that's a training video now.
Documentary now, isn't it? Those were the things that when we watched it at the time, we're like, yeah, this is a little much.
Yeah, other than point shaving, everything else is legal now.
So it isn't by choice. The NCAA didn't choose this. They got backed into it. When you get down to it, totally different than what any of us grew up with. Here's where I am with it, because I was against it for a long time too.
Right.
It doesn't benefit the game, I don't think. But when you get right down to it, I don't want some bureaucracy telling me that I can't earn money. And the NCAA actually did that to me at one
Yes.
point. You remember when they had the restricted earnings coach?
Yes.
I was in that deal. I was in the class action lawsuit because the NCAA, they were trying to save money wherever they could to keep it for themselves. And when we say the NCAA, we're really talking about the NCAA is the institutions.
Right.
But they're like, man, we're paying these coaches so much money. We need to have, it was probably well thought out. Let's have a restricted earnings. Let's have an entry level position where you can only make $12,000. Well, that's what it was. But then when somebody said, hey, wait a minute, they can't, this is America. You can't tell me how much I can earn. And the NCAA said, well, we are. And then we got lawyers and we won, because it's not American to tell somebody they can only earn so much money.
And it keeps people from getting in that business, that profession.
Now look at it. Now if you look at a college basketball game, look how many people are wearing, well, we used to say the suits.
Yeah.
They're not wearing suits anymore. They're all wearing pullovers or whatever. But there's a lot. At one time, there was a head coach, there were two assistants, and then there was a third assistant. And then maybe if you were lucky, you had a GA.
And a manager that get to sit by the coach and keep stats. So
yeah, that looked like a coach, and every now and then get into the games. That's how it used to be, and it was all really done to save money, because there wasn't the money in the business that there is now.
Right.
The money's all gone up. Money's really a great thing, but there's not many things that it improves when it gets to a high level I don't think it's going to improve this, but we'll see where it goes.
How do you think NIL has affected recruiting for high schoolers? And then has it kind of affected it at the upper sports, like the men's basketball, women's basketball, and football, where they get full ride scholarships compared to a baseball or a soccer or a track and field that usually got partials? How do you think NIL's kind of affected that?
Well, the most NIL money is probably sitting with football programs, and I'm talking the Power 5 type. So that's where most of the money is. The people that would benefit from it the most are for sure baseball. Now this stuff's changing too, but up until even still now, baseball programs have 11.7 scholarship for, I think that's right.
Yes.
11.7 for a roster of 40 or so. So you just do the math on that. On average, everybody's getting a quarter of a scholarship. That's not how it works, but you'll have one guy on a Tennessee baseball team. There's a whole bunch of guys on that team that they're figuring out how to pay for school. They're, prior to NIL, they were getting grants or whatever they could, because they can only have, and then you may have one guy on a team who's got a full ride. Tennessee was really smart and was early on. They were really good about the NIL stuff. It can really impact your baseball team. I think at the Power Fives, the money is probably used to recruit, to attract people. I can't even tell you I know exactly how that's done. I don't know how legally you do that, because at Missouri State, we've used it as retention. We haven't used it to attract people. But kids are now on recruiting visits. I know this is happening at a higher level. Kids walk in and the first thing they do is they have an NIL meeting at the behest of the coaches. They say, hey, we're going to introduce you to the people at the collective. They're going to go over what we have to offer, and then we'll continue on with showing you the visit. And they get that out of the way right off the bat. And in a way, it's like, hey, here's what we can do. So I know that happens on a recruiting visit now. Again, I don't think it happens much at even the mid-major level. I don't think it's happening much.
Right.
And I don't think it's happening in any sport other than football and basketball, although I would guess baseball is now getting to that point.
So like let's say a successful Division II that has good basketball or baseball or football programs, that they have some money. Can Division II and non-Division I basically get NIL money if they have it?
To my knowledge, they can.
Yeah.
I know that people who are Division II players are saying they are getting it, and I know that there are Division II coaches that are saying that they're giving it. I just wonder if it is in a way kind of lumped into there's lots of different funds now, that aren't necessarily NIL. There's a fund called the Alston Fund that everyone has ability to fund if they want to. It's kind of tied to academics, and there's a cap on it. It stems from another lawsuit. No, and then a couple of years ago, it was all about cost of attendance. teams being able to use cost of attendance. I think Division II can. I don't know for certain, but I'm almost positive that they can. And they have boosters just like anybody else. And if they have boosters that are interested enough and they want to hang on to a guy, sure they could.
So you mentioned the ever-changing college athletic arena. Not only do we have NIL that has changed, we have the transfer portal and then new roster and scholarship rules and limits, and then possibly JUCO years not taking away from your 4-year eligibility. How are we going to handle all this?
Those are all huge topics too. It's just an amazing thing about all of the things that are changing. And I know that we're talking to parents of kids that are, getting close. I've been in this my whole life and I can't give you a prediction on what it's going to do.
That wraps up part 1 of this interview with Jay Spoonhour. We covered many aspects of NIL, name, image, and likeness, in college sports, with various examples of how NIL is happening today. We also talked about how things are not settled, and that there will be many more changes and adjustments. Join me next week for part 2 of this interview with Jay Spoonhour. Episode 444 will have information about the transfer portal, levels of play, junior college eligibility, and when Jay, as a college coach, started recruiting players for his basketball teams. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Hi. I'll have the avocado toast minus the avocado.
So, toast.
Yeah. Everything is so expensive these days.
Hey, Chevy gets it. That's why they're keeping prices down to earth, like on the most affordable EV in America. A super strong and capable Chevy truck.
And a high-tech Chevy SUV.
Why is Chevy making affordable vehicles connected by OnStar? It's so together we can do more.
We believe banking should make your life greater. It starts with affordable options to meet today's needs and tomorrow's dreams. From smart account options that fit your style to flexible loans for what comes next. It means convenient ways to access and manage your money whenever you need it and wherever you're headed. Most of all, it takes great support. Someone you can count on for trusted guidance and to be there for you every step of the way. Great options, great convenience, great support for life. Great Southern Bank, understanding what really matters.
What rhymes with great?
Participate.
Where does greatness start?
Here, in the classroom.
On the stage.
In the pool.
On the field.
Where will your greatness take you?
To better grades.
To more friends.
Yeah! Be great.
Participate! Are you looking for an athletic scholarship? You're in the right place. This is the Recruit Me Athletic Scholarship Podcast, the longest running podcast on recruiting and athletic scholarships. We're here to help your family navigate the recruiting road all the way to an athletic scholarship. He's a recruiting expert and a dad of 2 college athletes. He has a wealth of experience to share. Here's Recruit Me CEO, Brent Hanks.
Welcome to episode 444 of the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. This is part 2 of a 2-part interview with Jay Spoonhour. Jay coached college basketball for 30 years and is now the Assistant Athletics Development Director for Missouri State University. Basically, he oversees the Name, Image, and Likeness Program, NIL, at the NCAA Division I Mid-Major Missouri State in Springfield, Missouri. Go back and listen to last week's episode 443, where we cover a lot of information about NIL. Today we hit on information about the transfer portal, levels of college play, junior college eligibility, and Jay's look at how he recruited as a coach and how his children were recruited. This episode is a little longer than normal, so let's get into part 2 of the interview with Jay Spoonhour. So you mentioned the ever-changing college athletic arena. Not only do we have NIL that has changed, we have the transfer portal and then new roster and scholarship rules and limits. And then possibly JUCO years not taking away from your 4-year eligibility. How are we going to handle all this?
Those are all huge topics too. It's just an amazing thing about all of the things that are changing. And I know that we're talking to parents of kids that are, getting close. I've been in this my whole life and I can't give you a prediction on what it's going to do. I know that the impact the portal has had is that if I'm a recruiter, and I have been a recruiter, and I have to choose between an 18-year-old kid who doesn't even have black hair on his legs, or a 24-year-old guy who's played 100 games, I know who I'm taking. That's just a reality. So what's happened is the elite high school players are still getting recruited. There's just way fewer guys and gals that are now going to a mid-major level. And when I'm speaking on this, I'm talking about what I know the best, which is men's basketball. I don't know if it's the exact same in women's, because I know we have women's players, the parents that are listening. So I don't know that for sure. My guess is that portal hasn't impacted it as much, but I think it probably will. What you have now, you have free agency among everybody in college sports. When people, for the most part, get into the portal, they're doing it as a vehicle for free agency. They're wanting to see what their worth is. And if I'm making zero at one school, I wonder what I can get if I put my name in. I had a good year. I have some video. I'm a good player. I wonder what I can get. It really impacts the high school kids. My thing that I've always say to everybody that I talk to is don't get discouraged. In the years past, you'd see a high school kid play football or basketball or whatever, and you'd go, oh, he's D1. Or how many offers does he have? And now nobody's getting any offers. Like overnight, that all dried up. If you're a good player, don't let it discourage you that you're not getting a bunch of offers like kids did in the past. Just keep getting better. Keep working and getting better. And if you get an offer, don't do like kids were doing for a while and treating it like the old gunslingers would put a notch on their belt for every guy they killed in the Westerns. Guys were collecting offers like they were butterflies and showing off. If you get an offer now, shoot, if you think you like the place, accept it. If you think you like it, don't wait around. There are a whole bunch of people you're competing with for that spot. If you're a good player, get on the roster and prove yourself. That's the best way. So I think you're going to see more and more kids starting at Division II level, NAIA level, and then if they're happy, they can stay, or they can, if they want to move on, they can. It's become an accepted practice. I think a good junior college is now great because if it happens, man, those years may not count, and you may be able to, as a business move. Let's say you're a baseball player and you go 2 years, you get better at hitting at a JUCO. It hasn't happened yet, but there's a chance that you come out of the JUCO after 2 years as a 20-year-old and you're still going to be a freshman. That may be happening. I don't know if it will or not, but there's a chance. It could be the thing that brings junior college baseball and basketball really back.
You've coached in a junior college. Your dad was a Hall of Fame junior college coach, I think. You've been at Division II. Tell the kids and the families what the level of play is at those levels. There are very, very good NAIA junior college Division II teams and players, and then there are very bad ones too. But like you said, get on the field, get on the court, prove yourself, and then you have more of a way to move up now.
Things change so much, and like little rule changes here and there. We're dealing with huge rule changes, so it's hard for me to predict what it's going to look like. But I think what you're going to see is more and more, for the most part, non-qualifiers are the kids that went to junior college. I had at one point when I was at Moberly, I had the number one player in the country. He had signed at Oklahoma State. But he didn't have the grades to get in. This guy was a McDonald's All-American. Like he was an NBA level pro, like lottery pick level athlete. And then I also had a kid on that same team from Moberly High School that averaged 4 a game. So the difference in talent is crazy sometimes in JUCO. That could be changing to where you get more non-qualifiers. Like if you are a kid who is a good student, but you're also a good player, junior college is probably never something you thought about because it was something that only non-qualifiers did. Well, I'm here to tell you there's a whole bunch of really good junior colleges. And I think the level, it's good because it's a good experience. You have to learn to live in a dorm. You have to learn how to cook for yourself, all the things that you do in college. Junior college was always great for that. And there's some that are so nice. I mean, like, golly, I think about my friend Rand Chappell, who's at Johnson County.
Johnson County is a great campus.
Well, it's unbelievable. There's 30,000 students at Johnson County, and it's in an affluent part of Overland Park, Kansas City. Like, it's a great place. And so I think the kinds of players that Johnson County's had in the past were mostly non-qualifiers, and I think it could be changing. I think you could have kids that were 3.5 students. You can still take great classes at junior college. You don't have to be there because you didn't qualify. And I don't want to even say yet that those years aren't going to count. But I mean, my gosh, they've already said that the kid from Vanderbilt can come back and play. So there's options that if you want to play, you can still go play. It's just not quite what it's been in the past. It may be that you go to a Division II, an NAIA or a JUCO, and you just keep getting better. To me, that's the key to everything.
Sutton, my younger son's at Columbia College playing baseball, NAIA level, and he had a player that started out, he's from Australia, started out at a junior college in Iowa, played 2 years at Columbia College, was one of the nation's leading home run hitters in NAIA across the country, and he's now at Mizzou. So he has performed well at an NAIA level, and he's now going to try to cut the roster at Missouri. So it can happen if you prove yourself, and he found a way to prove himself.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, we tend to say, well, I am whatever I am when I'm coming out of high school. And you sort of get labeled as, hey, you're this many stars, or you're a mid-major, or you're a whatever. And what it doesn't take into account is that a lot of kids are still growing when they're in, or when they get into college. And then there's a lot of kids that stop working. The goal for a lot of kids, you wouldn't believe how much this happens. The goal to them was making it to Division I, or the goal was to be a college ball player. And then they get to college and they discover sororities and they discover parties, and they don't work like they used to work. They settle in and they get comfortable. And the thing I'm going to tell you, like, which is fine too, honestly, like, nothing says that you have to just be just gung ho all the time. If you want to just enjoy your career, you can do that. But if you keep getting better, continue to get better, and try to envision what kind of player you're going to be at the age of 26 years old. And we may be still watching you in college. I'm kind of not joking. Like,
yeah,
chance that the whole format might change to where older people are playing in college now. But if you continue to lift weights, work, get better at your craft, whatever it is, you may be a pro at some level if you just keep on trying.
Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills, he started at a junior college.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And you know what? It happens all the time. It doesn't even have to be a huge story like that. But like, we can all remember kids that were in high school and you're like, oh man, yeah, I didn't think he was that good.
Yeah.
And you watched him and you're like, oh wow, he gained weight, he got better, whatever it is. Even if you don't have a huge growth spurt or whatever. I think about the other night, Ty Freeman from Parkview, and it was here 5 or 6 years ago at Hillcrest and Parkview. He was really a good player in high school, but he is like a seasoned pro now. And he's now at Illinois Chicago, and he came in and had 18 points the other night, and he looks like the type of guy that could have a really long career as a pro. Maybe not NBA pro, but that guy, if he wants to, he could play for a long time. And that's a heck of a way to start your life.
His Parkview team knocked out Parker, my older son's team, in Parker's senior year. And I said Ty Freeman decided he was a Division I player the second half of that game, and carried them past Ozark and carried him. I think they took him to the sectional estate that year just because he goes, oh, I'm a D1 player. Nobody can stop me.
Well, and then so his story, he had a knee injury.
Right.
He went to junior college. He then transferred to Central Florida. Like, he's been at high level places and he's played against the very, very best. But even that, like, a guy who you watch now is, I don't know how old he is. I think he's probably 23 or 4. You think that he's got it all figured out and things were always easy for him or whatever. But shoot, even as a high school senior, you don't dominate. Not everybody is a dominant guy.
Right.
Not everybody looks like a can't miss process. I mean, some people you're like, like if you had left at halftime, or if some scout had left at halftime, they would have gone, oh yeah, Ty Freeman, he didn't get much done. He was, I'm not sure. He's a good athlete, but the same stuff that everybody always says. And the whole point is don't listen to people. Just try to think about listen to the people that you should listen to, but don't listen to all the noise.
And I talk to my families a lot about, don't just play well and hope a coach comes and finds you. You got to go market yourself. And an example I use is a kid named Quinn Nelson. I've done an interview with him, and he played with Parker here at Ozark, and played 5 years at SBU. He's like their all-time leading scorer, 3-point shooter, and he's now playing overseas. He was getting recruited by some nice Division II teams, 6'3" shooter, and he averaged 25 points a game at the Tournament of Champions. Do you know how many new recruiting calls he got off averaging 25 points at the Tournament of Champions?
Well, you would think a lot, but not always, right?
He got none.
Yeah, I know.
And so I use that as an example to prove to people, you've got to go market yourself. You've got to go tell people, I want to play for you, and find a place to play. And he did at SBU. He's a legend at SBU. He could have gone low-level Division I and probably not have had success. So he made the right choice, luckily. So,
Brent, I used to say this all the time that, if you're a good player, people will find you. But again, talking about the rules, the NCAA changing the rules about AAU. And where, the reason that he probably got no offers is because there probably weren't many college coaches at the tournament champions.
Right.
And the reason is, I think maybe in the past it was probably packed, but the reason is because they have cut the recruiting days down so much during the year that you see everybody in the summer at these big events. And they've sort of, with the rules they've created, they sort of engendered that. That's what they wanted because it saves money. But it is true that in basketball, I used to think, oh, you'll be fine. And then I started realizing, shoot, I could, unless it was local. I very rarely, when I was a Division I head coach, I didn't go very far to watch guys.
Right.
You got too much going on with your own team. And the big boys can get on a plane and fly, like a private plane and get up and back, but most people aren't the big boys. That's the other thing, is that coaches can also be wrong. Like, you watch a guy, there aren't as many evaluators on college basketball staffs as there used to be, because so much of this now is about just guys are coming in for 1 year, and it's about getting the guy and knowing that he's probably transferring in a year if stuff doesn't work out. The hardest part used to be trying to evaluate, is this high school kid, is his game going to play? Well, now you're taking guys out of the portal. It's easy to tell if this game's going to play because you're watching him play against DePaul. He had 12 points against Dayton. Like, you don't have to evaluate that. Anybody can tell that. You used to have to watch a guy and go, I don't know if he's tall enough or fast enough, or can he get his shot off? Those days are done. And that's why, because if you're a high school kid and you're like, I don't know why they're not seeing, a lot of staffs don't have they don't get into evaluating. They recruit, but they don't evaluate, because it's sort of it's something that you don't need. You're going to do your recruiting out of the portal, and you can judge that based on stats and video.
And I remember talking to you when you were at Eastern, and it was either you or Coach Chappell, your assistant coach, saying that you would work hard to get a freshman in. This is before the transfer portal new rules. You would work hard to get a freshman in. They would play a lot as a freshman, and then they would even sit out a year so they could go transfer up to another level of play or another school. So this transfer portal stuff's been going on for a while. The kids just don't have to pay a penalty for it like they used to.
It didn't happen that way to us. The coach prior to us, I can remember sitting with him watching a guy from Chicago, and he was I was at junior college at the time. The only Division I offer that this kid from Chicago had was Eastern Illinois, and he was really a good player. And I told the coach, I go, golly, this is in the regionals. I said, are you going to get that guy? That guy's a good player. And he said, we think we're the only ones. And 3 weeks later, or a month later, or whatever, I saw him at a prep school. The kid had decided to go to prep rather than go to Eastern Illinois. That sort of thing now is going to happen more. I don't think I'm going to be happy here. I'll go there. The deal that does happen, though, like at a place like EIU and with the portal, you're not putting in tricky plays. You're going to run stuff because you're probably having guys for 1 year. Yeah. If a guy does really well at a low major, he's probably leaving. Talking about like coaches not always knowing what they're looking at. As a recruiter, you're wrong a lot. There's guys that worked out way better than I thought they would, and there's guys that I thought were really going to be good and they just didn't. But I can tell you this happened to me so many times. I would go after a guy who had no Division I offers, but I thought he was good, or one of the guys on my staff thought they were good. The minute you offer them and the word gets out that he's got a D1 offer, 4 more D1 offers come in. It was uncanny how often it happened. And the reason is because people aren't always sure what they're looking at. All they need is just a little bit of verification that, oh yeah, they think he's good. Let's offer him. You want to believe as a parent that all this stuff is, that everybody's got it all mapped out. It's a crapshoot on somebody.
Well, and going back to like your junior college coaching days, your Division II and Division I, when do you start looking at young men for men's basketball? What's kind of a timeline for those 3 levels?
Late in JUCO, you're looking at seniors. Whether you had to get high level play, like where I was when I was at Wabash Valley or when I was at Moberly, the expectation is you're going to win 30 games and you're going to win the national championship.
Right.
And so the level of guy you had to have, you were getting guys in July and August before the season started because they're trying to take their classes or finish up their test. So that was later. The higher the level, the earlier you're on. So when I was at Missouri, we were on sophomores, freshmen sometimes. At a low major, maybe juniors, maybe. Honestly, like you had to wait. What you didn't want to do was spin your wheels and spend money for somebody that you couldn't get. So like it happened to me right away at Eastern Illinois. There was one of the first guys I really liked was a guy named Finke that ended up was a really good player, no offers, right up the road, from us. I was really the only one on him. And then he went to a camp in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Badgers elite camp. They offered him a scholarship. Well, once that happens, it's over for Eastern Illinois. You get blown out of the water on a deal like that. And so that's why you don't go after young guys very often, because you don't have the resources to do that. You might make calls or do whatever, but I think volleyball and women's basketball recruit much earlier. And I don't know for what reason, except I know they recruit the families more so than the guys do. Seems to be anyway.
And I think the ladies are more mature in high school than the boys are.
Well, there's no question about that. For most people, you get nervous because it's your junior year and you're really playing good and you haven't gotten any attention. And I'll just tell you, it's going to start happening more and more. And it's difficult to tell you, don't get discouraged or don't get nervous. But you talk about this all the time. You have to market yourself and you have to be pretty honest with what level you think you could play at. These days, it doesn't do you any, unless you want to stay at a place, it doesn't do you any good to go sit on the bench and wait your turn, because the roster that you're looking at is not going to be there next year. Now, someone that would go in and stay actually now you actually have a lot of value because you're a returner and you know more than these new guys coming in. But it's just so uncertain as to what they're going to get. They could bring in 3 guys at your position. You just don't know. If you have kids right now, it can't be a more difficult time.
Kind of going back to what you're talking about on when you started looking at kids, junior college, again, Division II, Division I. Are you looking at size? Are you looking at quickness, talent? We're mainly talking basketball with our background, but what are you kind of looking for as you start getting on a kid?
All these things they're trying to go to measurables on darn near everything, right? So football's always been about measurables, the pro combines and all that stuff where they can say, here's your 40 time, here's this, we'll turn you into a football player. Their mode of recruiting is, you throw a blanket over it. Like, if we get this many guys that have this 40 time, we're going to have a good secondary. It's the sort of thing where they were the first sport to really do it that way. Baseball became that for sure. Now with the gun and the spin rate stuff that they can measure, that's how that works. And I was never a proponent, as a fan. I thought there was too many numbers and all this stuff. And hey, I'm old school, and Whitey Herzog never knew what a spin rate was. But I will say this: I never knew why my kid got guys out when he was pitching. I just knew that nobody seems to hit him very hard.
Right.
I knew his ball moved. He got lots of pop-ups and lots of kind of weak contact. Made sense on the weak contact. His two-seamer that runs in on a hitter and hits him off the hands. But he's popping guys up all the time. Until he got on a Rapsodo deal, his spin rate for his four-seamer was off the charts, like really, really high, like professional pitcher level high. And what it means is that his fastball has life. That's what we used to say. His ball has, it jumps, it doesn't rise, but it has the impact of, like, it's got life. And people pop it up because they think it's belt level and it's actually just above their belly button. And the next thing you know, they're popping it up. So I've become a big fan of that because the Missouri State guys were like, yeah, here's why he pops them up. His spin rate's like 2,700, whatever number it was. So the numbers stuff really helps. And there's no way to really teach spin rate for baseball that I know of. But I know, like, if you hit the ball hard, the hard hit rate, that stuff matters. And so working on things like that are really good. The only thing I don't like guys working on is velocity. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm not a pitching coach either. So that I'll stay out of that. But I just think rearing back and throwing it into a mat as hard as you can, I don't know that I like that very much. Basketball they haven't been able to really use the measurables as much. You look at a guy and you're like, I don't think he's fast enough, but it was all opinion based. Maybe now they do with the cone drills and all that stuff, they can do it. But the thing that separates guys most of the time in basketball is speed. It's not so much size as it is speed.
Not as many measurables, and so that's why you've got to you give coaches that information verified. You can't just make stuff up and give coaches. They've also got to see you play either by video or in person to get a good feel for you, especially at basketball. Like I said, football and baseball have stats and metrics that can kind of get you there. The guys in baseball, and I think your son's like Parker was. I couldn't figure out how he got people out, but he did. And he threw strikes, and he wasn't getting recruited very hard because he didn't throw very hard. And I'm like, well, the idea is to get people out, right? So that was a frustrating part of our recruiting, and that's why finding the right place to go was important for him.
Yeah, that is it for sure, because you have to have in a way, you have to really be fortunate. My kid was looking at going to a JUCO, Jeffco, that level of thing. He's a good student, but he was going to go to a JUCO level like that. And what he did, likely a little bit what you did. We called the coaches here and we got him into one of their camps. I wanted Gutton and Joey and the guys at Missouri State to take a look at him and just tell me what level that he should be thinking about.
Right.
Not thinking that he was going to be here, but they're like, hey, look, here, we think we would rather keep him here and let him do it. The point of this is I'm lucky in that I knew those guys, but I also did it with guys that I didn't know. I was calling junior colleges. We were living in St. Louis at the time. I called Jeffco. I called Moberly. Everybody I could think of who had a baseball program. We just went to camps. You got to let them see them. Because going to an event, like if you go to wherever it is folks go here, I don't know, where we were living, Indianapolis was a huge one. Mm-hmm. But you just got to get lucky that your kid hits the ball on the day that a scout's there. Or that sometimes guys were there and my kid wasn't pitching. It's as easy as getting on the website. Everybody knows somebody that can get them to a spot where, be honest about where you think they should go. Understand that most people are using the portal now. So think lower, but JUCO, NAIA Division II, and you may go there and love it. If you're good and you don't love it, transfer. Everybody accepts it now.
Like Quinn, he's kind of a legend in Bolivar, Missouri now. Would you rather be a legend at Bolivar, Missouri, or be just a guy at a mid-major someplace? Both of them are right.
There's nothing wrong with any of it. I think about the guys on the Missouri Tiger basketball team right now. I don't really know any of them, but like a bunch of them are from Kansas City and, are local, but they went away to prep schools.
Yeah.
And they went away. And then, they have a guy that transferred from Duke and a guy that transferred from Indiana. Both of them are Kansas City guys, but they left their junior years. Maybe I may be wrong on this with when they left, but you can't hold that. You can't hold it against a guy. If you're going to be a basketball player, going to a place like IMG, if you're a real player, or going to Link Year Prep or going to Sunrise Christian, if you're going to be a ball player, you will get better at those places and you will get seen. It'll help your brand. It all comes down to what your goal is. The other thing is that like their experience is what their experience has been. They've gotten to see the world. These kids got to live in Florida. One kid went to, you enroll at Duke.
Yeah.
You have that experience. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But then there's also the experience of if you'd stayed in Kansas City and gone to Missouri, now you're Anthony Peeler. You're a guy who people see walking down the street and they go, oh man, that guy was really, because everybody saw you play growing up. I don't think there's a right and wrong. It's all a matter of what you want to do.
You've mentioned your kids. Tell us a little bit about your family and what your kids are doing.
Oldest daughter is getting ready to graduate this spring from Missouri State. She was on the track and cross country team. She started out in JUCO, thought a couple of different times that her career was over because she kept slowing down for whatever reason. And there's some measurables in track and field.
Yeah.
It's a clock, and that's it. Running is such a tricky thing because if you feel bad one day in a couple tenths of a second, and the next thing you know, you're not on the team. So
was she adopted, or where did she get the running gene?
Man, no kidding, right? Because I hated running. My wife, I probably should start with my wife. She was a collegiate soccer player, won 2 national championships in junior college. She was really a good soccer player. So she was fast. But Grace she's a runner, but she'll graduate this year. And then my son I was talking about earlier is Charlie, is a pitcher for Missouri State. I hope he can redshirt. He needs to redshirt. He did well in the fall, didn't blow anybody's doors off, but he did well enough. I think the coaches would like to redshirt him. It would be great. Like, that's another thing, is that you always want to watch your kid play, but a redshirt year is so good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to be good on the back end. I want to see how good, and that's what I told him when he was asking me about it. I said, son, you want to be good when you're 23. When you're 23, that's when you're having a chance to be a pro or having a chance to help Missouri State win a big game. You ain't going to help anybody win a big game right now. I mean, you're just not.
Win some midweeks. That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's if it happens, great. Like if they need you and you can help, because I think this year's Bears team is going to be good. So if he could get out there, that'd be terrific. My youngest son is a freshman in high school. He lives in St. Louis with his mom, going to the all boys. My wife likes the school at Vianney. And so it was great for Charlie. And so we're going to keep Sammy up there, and he's plays ball, plays soccer, plays basketball, plays baseball.
It's fun to get you back into the area. I tell people I think I used to take you home. You'd come to the gym, and Brian and I would take you to your house every so often after you got done with basketball, and got to watch you play a little bit in high school. And you had a successful college basketball career and successful coaching all through the years.
I never was very good, but I'm sort of like, because I grew a ton when I was in high school and was really slow and skinny and bad. But I just kind of kept hanging around it. I wasn't even very good when I was in college. But by the time I was 24, which is how old I was when I was graduating, or 23, I actually wasn't half bad. I mean, I was good enough to be a starter and be all conference, honorable mention. That's the other thing, is just because I was pretty bad. You remember that. If you like playing, you just keep playing and hang in there.
Did you take charges like Coach Spoonhour did in practice?
It was the only thing I could do. I flopped. I watch people do it now, and I realize that that's what I looked like. And I hate to even see people I played against, because it's embarrassing. They just have no talent. And so you just do what you can to get on the floor. So I would wait for there to be 6 fouls in the game, and then I would make a face and flop and fall down and try to get to the free throw line.
Right.
It's a disgusting way to play the game.
I learned so much from being with your dad for my 4 years and being around the program. And, I always say, how did Scott Hickok start for Missouri State Bears or SMS Bears back then? You don't have to be a super talent to play basketball in college. You just have to do little things right, and you can get on the floor. So
if you were surrounded by, the other thing that helped Scott was there were so many really good players around him.
Yeah, that Garland guy was pretty good.
Pretty good. So having a guy that wasn't going to fire up a bunch of shots, probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And being a guy who was smart enough to do everything that you're told. There's a talent in that too, because Scott Hickok would literally do everything that he was asked, and he would really do it as hard as you could do it.
Matter of fact, probably the biggest win was against BYU, and I think Scott basically made a steal that got Winston to hit a shot that took us into overtime. We ended up winning at it, but it was Scott's steal at the end that got us to that point.
Brent, that's the other thing. He was in the game at that time.
Yeah.
He was being a reliable guy. Like, it's one thing to be a guy who starts the game and you're out there just to sort of get the game started and move the ball and help facilitate. There's the end of the game on the road at BYU, and he's on the floor in the last 10 seconds because you knew he might get a hand on a ball. There's a talent in that for sure.
I need to get with you. I think we could write a book about Coach Spoonhour's any of his phrases and all his anecdotes that he told. So we might have to do that. We might make a couple dollars doing that.
I asked him when we were at St. Louis U if he would mic himself up on the bench, because he would say so many funny things. And I said, why don't we mic you and do it? And he goes, no, the minute you know that there's a microphone, you change who you are.
Yeah.
You'd be playing for the line, which he goes, at the time he goes, son, we've got a hard enough time just winning ball games. Why don't we just do that? And then he did need to write a book. When some of those stories get into print, it doesn't have quite the same.
No, you can retell them, but it has to be kind of that personal face-to-face kind of retelling. So, and then you can embellish it a little bit too.
It's probably best in all of our memories.
Give us a couple pieces of recruiting advice that you have for high schoolers from what your kids went through, and what you've done in the past and what you're seeing today. You can mix that all together and give us a couple pieces of advice.
Yeah, with the portal, don't get discouraged, because college coaches are going after older guys. So the fact that you're not getting contacted doesn't necessarily mean it's because you're not a good player at that level. You just maybe haven't reached that level yet, and you want to keep getting better. Be honest with yourself about what level you think you can play at. And you'll find that there's really good players at every level. Schools you've never heard of in wherever, Oklahoma, or there's really good players everywhere. So you'll be challenged. And the other thing is just to market yourself. You have to be active. You don't have to totally be a salesman, but sit down and email, look up places you think you'd like to live or play, or people you see on TV and the way they play, and email the coaches and say, here's who I am. Here's some video. I'd be interested in coming by. And then drive over to their school. They don't see everybody. They can't see everybody. They need your help sometimes.
We appreciate that. I'm sure we're going to try to have you back on sometime, because there's probably about 10 other subjects that we could talk about, but I appreciate your time.
Well, I'll do it anytime. And the other thing is that all this stuff could change within 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be some crazy rules that come down that could really change everything. the JUCO eligibility and all that stuff, it might be a huge shift in how high school kids go about it. So if something big happens, just call me back.
That'll be great. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this interview with Jay Spoonhour. We not only gave you some insight into college sports and recruiting, but we got to reminisce and mix in some helpful observations. Join me next week as you'll see how Recruit Me helps you save both time and money.